Hi, Christine.
Hi, Brian. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. We
You
have,
are
sorry, go ahead.
you're joined by a new person.
Yeah, I was just going to say we have someone, I'm training her tonight because I wanted to let you all know that on the March 17th meeting, I have another meeting that I'm needed at. So Chanel works in CEDO. She's going to be covering. So this is Chanel, and she's just going to be kind of co-hosting tonight. So
Hi, Chanel. Hi there.
Thanks for having me.
I love your purple wall.
Thank you. I'm a purple person. Everything is purple.
Wow. I tend to love purple, always have.
Nice.
Yeah. Yep. There's something about it. Just makes you feel good when you see it.
Yep. And purple people are distinct. It's the only favorite color that people go, you're like, oh, everywhere.
that was the color at my wedding, purple and green.
Really?
Nice.
Yep.
Oh, great.
Okay, so you have
Right.
Chanel in the attendees list, Sarah Carpenter. She's another counselor, so you can move her over.
Great.
Perfect.
Hello, Sarah. Sarah, are you getting calls and emails from people about the ballot questions asking you to talk about them?
Yes.
Yeah, there's so many of them. It's hard for people to just.
Could you explain it in a few minutes? Like, you got an hour and I'll explain them all.
Yeah.
It's really unbelievable. And I've gotten a lot on the school. I'm like, that be your school commissioner. Don't be asking me.
Yeah.
Could you explain school funding? Like, no, I can't.
Especially you and I have worked with the common level of appraisal. Most people haven't. So most people don't know. That's a concept that takes a while to explain.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It does.
And part of the reason why a big chunk of our tax request is due to our CLA being so out of whack.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. We gotta, I don't know. And we're gonna have some explaining to do this spring after the reappraisal, which is really irrelevant of that, but it's gonna.
Yep. Yeah. I had to get my city laptop swapped out, and the one I was using was great because I could connect it to my I have a much larger screen that I would keep things like the agenda over there, so I didn't have to look. But now I don't have access, so I'm going to need someone to help keep me. I don't think there's a lot on this agenda, so we're okay. But
Well, and did you see the note from Cameron?
I didn't get a chance to read it. No,
we're going to have even less to talk about, I think.
Oh, okay.
Well, you can see, basically, he cannot come, but they had a meeting this last week. Or maybe I'll wait till we start, but and they're doing our work, but there's nothing, they're not coming tonight. So.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe it'll be a very short meeting. I have gonna go away for a few days, and I'd like to, if I know that I'm gonna end early, I'll just go get my stuff ready,
Yep.
Yeah.
I think we could all appreciate that.
Yeah. Hello, Zaraya.
Hi, sorry, just filling up my water before I go upstairs.
Oh, no problem. You have designated rooms for these meetings?
We just each have our own bedroom, I guess.
Yeah. We have separate floors for this stuff. I stay down and Liz goes up, but.
Oh, that's lucky.
Yeah.
Tom is so loud. I spend every meeting just going in and being like, use your inside voice.
Well, it's hard. I hadn't thought about that because my partner's retired and my son lives in the basement. It's only my dog who interrupts me, but you're right. you have two people talking at the same time.
Yeah.
Right, especially because I have, my job.
Yeah.
And Tom has just political things, but they're all somewhat related to me, so it's hard to not listen.
Yeah.
I'm like, I have my day job. Let me do my day job.
Yeah.
That would be hard. I can't even quite imagine all doing
Yeah.
my day job on Zoom. I was all this morning on a legislative hearing, and I don't know how they do it. 8 hours a day, every day.
Well, you have to find that feature in Zoom that I think Zerai either told me or somebody how to put your photo on, but I lost my
Oh, yeah.
photo, so I got to put a photo back on.
I should do that, because at least you don't feel like you're totally disappeared when you just have your name in a block letter. It looks,
Your photo makes you partially present.
yeah.
Well, maybe this is what I told you, is because there are I guess high schoolers and stuff that were supposed to be, or college that are supposed to be listening, they will just take a picture like this as opposed to like a picture.
Oh.
They're listening, but it's just like.
That's how they're going to sit anyway. That's the look they would give you anyway. So.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a nephew who just spent a week with us, and he said his classes, he told his teacher that he just has issues and anxiety around having his face on the camera, so he doesn't have to turn his camera on ever.
Wow.
So, but he needs some help with that, so that's okay. All right, we have everyone present, and it is 5:35 according to my watch. So I'll call to order the meeting of the City Council Community Development and Neighborhood Revitalization Committee on Thursday, February 25th. And we will review the agenda. Is there anything about the agenda that committee members would like to change, add? Okay, a motion to approve the agenda.
So move.
Councilor Carpenter and seconded by Councilor Hightower. All in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, the ayes have that. Minutes from our last meeting.
I'll move approval.
Moved and seconded. Any changes to the minutes or any discussion about the minutes? Okay, all in favor of the minutes, please say aye.
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 All right. Public forum. Do I have it right, Christine? Did I do the right sequence?
Yes, you're doing great. If you're doing this by memory anyway.
Yeah.
I'm to the other counselors, I'm training Chanel more tonight. I will not be at the next meeting on March 17th. This is not a great meeting to train Chanel on because we have no one to speak at public forum, and I don't even have other attendees to show her how to promote over to panelists. But I didn't receive any emails or any requests to speak, and I don't see any other attendees. So Chanel, this is very, this isn't typical. Usually we have at least people attending the meeting. But yeah, so no one for public forum this evening.
Well,
So
I don't know if the fact that we are meeting 5 days before the election has anything to do with it, but I would just say that I think most people have their thoughts are on other topics. And I did not get a chance to read the email we received from Cameron Siegel from Living Well Group, and Councilor Carpenter did. So if you could summarize what Cameron sent us, Sarah.
Well, what he had said, and is actually the initial group, we had a group meet of Kelly Stoddard-Poor, who's AARP, Megan Humphrey of Hands, myself. Our initial group has grown to include Angela Smith-Jang, who is with the Department of Aging and Independent Living, Jim Hallway, who is now the current president of COVE, the Coalition of Vermont Elders, Heather Filanow, who is with the VNA, and Kim Fitzgerald with Cathedral Square. We met for the first time this week and have a plan to develop a draft proposal over the next few weeks. Unfortunately, I'm unable to attend the meeting tonight. to update you. And I had invited Jim Hallway from Cove as well, and he just texted me like 5 minutes ago. And he also has an association with,
He's on the Cove. He's on Cove, but someone else too?
yeah, he also works with Cameron as well. And he said a situation came up. So I don't know if it was at their facility or what the scoop was, and we don't seem to have any of the other folks. So it sounds like they spent some time on it, but we don't have anyone here to tell us what they did.
Yeah.
Which is
Okay.
good. I mean, I'm pleased that they've taken that Cameron and Megan and Kelly took the initiative to do something.
Sarah,
So-
could you just list, I have Kelly, Megan, Cameron, Jim, Heather, and Kim, but there was someone I missed in that list. Do you have?
Kelly, Megan, Cameron, Angela Smith-Jang, that's Ali's wife.
Oh, sure. Yep.
She's pretty high up in the Department of Aging in Dale.
Okay.
Department
Yep.
of Aging and Independent Living.
Yep.
And then Heather Filonow, Filonow, she's with the VNA.
Okay. And I know Kim Fitzgerald, so we're all set there. Okay, well, what would be, do you want to have a chance to discuss what you all would like us to do with this discussion, which I realize feels a little bit amorphous right now because we're sort of exploring a new idea really, and we don't have a specific proposal sort of on the table, but maybe it's a good chance for us to say what we think about what we would like this group to do. What would be the purpose? Sort of create like what we think would be an ideal mission statement or something, or job description or something that defines what it is we're hoping they will focus on. And, you know, in an ideal world, if we look back in a few years, we'll say we're glad we created that group because they did these things, you know.
Well, I think we should talk about kind of what the relationship of this group, whatever it is that they want to propose, might be to the city itself. I mean, I'm very pleased to see they've taken the initiative. I think, at least from the last meeting and then talking offline with Jim and a couple others, they're very anxious to form something. And so my sense would be, and this is a little off topic, but maybe in terms of setting a next meeting date, we should hold off and see when they're ready to come back to us, and sort of do it around that. But, you know, from the city's point of view, what would be useful to us? And I have a sense that this group may come back with sort of some broader visions, which I think is great, that may or may not be, you know, just city specific. In the day, we used to have, what the heck did we call it? Long-term care consortium. I can't remember. So many years ago. So there was a Chittenden County group many years ago that kind of took all the senior type issues, and it was more like a Chittenden County group, and it was very helpful. And then it sort of faded, like things do. Then there's been a few things at the state level. And then gathering what I gathered from the last time, and maybe Christine, you know, the pandemic kind of threw everybody back together, and they've been focused on a fairly good sized group on really senior care in the pandemic, but kind of then moving away from that, you know, what would a useful group do? And, you know, I think I'll be curious to see what their thought is in terms of who and how it should be affiliated. I mean, is it a advisory group to a specific department, to the city council itself? Should it be more independent, which is kind of what I'm thinking, and a group that we can then turn to when city issues come up, and vice versa? They would want to be able to turn to us when they have an opinion on city issues, but I'm not sure the best way to begin approaching that is.
Yeah, well, the only thing, or I should say, the thing that I keep going back to is the way the city used to have, entities that had some connection to a city function or city department, and we had the Women's Council, and it was connected to. It actually had a city staff person that worked on women's issues. That obviously is no longer and hasn't been for probably 20 something years. We had a youth office and we had a youth council that oversaw the operations of the youth office. So it's something different. It's really something new and different here that we're looking for, which is an entity that has some affiliation so that when the city is seeking the perspective of older Burlington residents, we have a place to get that perspective, and they could suggest policies and could give us direct feedback on plans and policies that we're considering. And it just seems like a great way to organize around that. And I agree, I don't think it needs to be like a real formal city body of any kind that would be created. I think it, to the extent we can support it with city staff just to keep it sort of get it going and keep it going might be helpful just as an initial startup.
Well, that's what I heard, and I think that from the report that was done now, a couple of years ago, that was one of the sort of findings was it's hard to keep these groups going if you don't have staff support. I think I'm just going to call them the pandemic group, but they've had a specific mission. CEDO has been providing support in the sense that they call the meetings, they email everybody and say, this is the time and place we're going to meet, and organize a little bit. And I think that's true with any group. Having just that sort of low level of support is useful, otherwise it falls on somebody as a sort of a volunteer, which is usually what ends up killing things when people lose their steam.
Yeah.
I feel like I have less of a sense of, I guess, how we've done these bodies for historically, either state or municipal wide, than you do. But I do feel like it would it feels like it either has to be kind of an informal body that advises on specific decisions, or, because to some extent, I don't know if there's like a few issues where it would be worth putting some money or promise of action or something behind it and getting to like something much more concrete that can be done. I feel like transportation might be one of those, just because it does seem to be kind of the barrier that keeps coming up. And so I guess I hope that in doing something more general and advisory, I kind of hope that we don't exclude the possibility of having like a short-term, like what if you had, a $20,000 annual budget, what would be the most helpful kind of like transportation reduction of barriers for seniors or something like that. Does that make sense?
Well, it does, although being cautious, what I heard them say last time, and I'd like them to come back to us, is what would you find the most useful? And I think, part of it is getting the group organized, and then maybe letting the group itself kind of do a little strategic planning on, what's your top 5 issues or top 3 issues, and how do we proceed with them. Well, I think, for instance, Kelly has in fact been involved a lot with the transportation, but she's been doing it kind of under AARP. So having a combined group that has the housing providers, the care providers, all in like the same room, all talking about transportation, I think that's all a good thing. So, and I don't want to sort of put on that, it would be useful to find out kind of what is it that they're thinking, where do they see the top needs in the city, and with some caution around, you know, is it a city function, or is it a regional function, or is it a state function? So I personally would love to support a group like this, but understand that it isn't nor should it be exclusively, quote, city. You know, for instance, and I think transportation is a really good example. You know, we have, keep changing the name, I want to say CCTA, but Green Mountain Transit, which is a regional authority. So for instance, if they were to pick transportation as an issue, you definitely want to have sort of a regional approach to that, and bring in Green Mountain and, you know, SSTA and, you know, those folks to talk, to have that conversation. I mean, again, I'm really quite pleased that they've already taken the initiative. So I feel like they're almost a step ahead of us. And one, this is and I would tell this to the whole group itself, having worked all these years. I mean, some of the issues that are that will be of concern to them, you know, are broader than senior issues, like transportation. I mean, that's obviously an issue for everyone. So we have to sort of make, you know, guide decisions around, is this a sort of everybody issue, or is this a senior issue? And they're not exclusive at all. You know, the perennial conversations that I had when between Cathedral Square and VHFA was the high demand for senior housing and the high demand for family housing. And, you know, who gets priority this year for what money?
Right.
So.
Yeah, and one quick, I wasn't trying to say, you know, it should be I think they should choose what the issue is. I guess I just want to make sure that if there's a way to support the issue that isn't policy based and is more like, this is something that maybe the city could just, it would be worth spending money on, that is like clearly that, you know, whatever the issues end up being, if we say, okay, focus on this issue first, we're happy to take policy recommendations. If a pool of money is what helps this issue, then maybe that is an option, so that it can be not just policy. And I hear you on the general issue, but I do think like transportation being an example, you know, transportation is a problem generally. And then I think it does make sense to say, is this, I guess, in terms of intersectionality, is this something that makes sense, you know, that seniors might have a harder time with, and therefore if we solve it for seniors, we solve it for most people? Or is this something that we do look at more broadly?
Yeah. Yeah, the great story with senior housing that it continues to happen when more senior housing is built. People don't realize that when you create new senior housing, people living in homes today go from being overhoused to living in much smaller apartments that they can afford, and their homes then are now new opportunities for families to move into. And like, that seems so obvious maybe, but it happened a lot when Sarah did when you created Heidelberg Senior Housing, that happened big time. And then when Cathedral Square created the Thayer apartments, some of my neighbors actually who were looking to stay, but not stay in their homes, were able to move on. And they kind of considered it to be, you know, staying inside of the same neighborhood, if you will, even though they went further out the avenue. And so Juniper House is about to open here, and that will do the same thing. So that's kind of just a part of our evolution as a city about creating new ways for seniors to stay here, but their homes become available because they don't need a 3-bedroom house. And it's hard to build new 3-bedroom houses. Very hard.
Yep. Yep. All agreed.
Yeah. So since we have, I think, a core of people, that's a good group of, I don't know, 6 or 7 people who are all really experienced and focused on this. We had set, Christine can confirm the date. I remember it being the 17th of March and the 31st of March. Does that sound right? Yeah.
Yep, the 17th and the 31st. Yep.
Yeah. So that gives them, is that 3 weeks? Yeah, it gives them 3 weeks. So, you know, it gives them enough time, but also enough, a little bit of urgency that we'd like to hear back by then to have an idea of, you know, their consensus that they've developed around what the role, what the need, the relationship to the city, relationship to the council or to this committee, whatever, all that. So, yeah, this is not a clear path. It's not linear here because there's no city department that provides these services. So.
I don't want to jump the gun. That this particular group, I think, is very capable. And so maybe in the short run, all they really do need is a little sort of coordinating support. And so those are the kind of questions I'd like to ask them. What if we're serious about keeping something going, what do you think you need, and how do you see us helping you?
Yeah. Okay. What's the group, Sarah, that used to be called the Council on Aging? That's called.
Well, it's now called
Age Well.
It was the Champlain Valley Agency on Aging,
Yeah.
for when I worked there a million years ago, and then it a few years ago changed its name. But in other parts of the state, they often called themselves the Council on Aging. So, and there's 5 of them. They're the major recipient of the Older Americans Act money that comes into the state. So the Department of Aging and Independent Living gets the big wad of federal money, and then they dole it out for all the community programs to the 5 designated agencies, basically, which used to be councils on aging or agencies on aging, and now they've kind of all gotten different names, which confuses me in my old age.
They're not one of these entities, though, are they? They're not represented in this list of groups.
They're not, and I'll check in with we can check in on, but certainly we can respond back to Cameron. They've had a change in leadership fairly recently, so that may be one of the issues. The new CEO actually happens to live in Franklin County, so the Age Well covers Chittenden, Franklin, Addison, and Grand Isle, so it covers 4 counties. So they're not as sort of Burlington centric. And so I don't know, I'm just not as clear on their leadership, and so I think it's a fair question. They delegate a lot to the community providers, and we, for instance, the Heidelberg Center. Angela, in her role with the state, certainly would be very knowledgeable of the Age Well funding and how the Age Well funding works, and the nutrition programs that come through the Older Americans Act, because basically she's the one that gives it out to the 5 designated agencies, including the one that would cover Chittenden County. But we can ask if they've been sort of drawn in. And again, I think because they've had a leadership change, and I think their model of how they deliver services, they contract out a lot of services. So they give money to VNA and others.
Okay.
But that was all.
Yeah. Sounds like they've changed quite a bit over the years.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are convened, but it doesn't mean we need to stay convened. We don't have a lot of business to do right now because until this group has sort of reported back to us, it does feel a little bit like we could have an interesting chat, but I'd rather have it be informed by them.
Yes.
So yeah.
I think this is all good, and I just one maybe request of Cameron is we want to make sure that everybody's on CDNR's email list.
Exactly. I wondered that today too. Yeah.
So maybe we need to ask him of.
I have an email.
Like
I have
the woman from the VNA.
Yeah, I don't have her.
I bet she's not on our list,
Yep.
So we should
Christine might have access to a more complete list because of CEDO's convening with Marcella and Brian Lowe convening that group. So that if you can make sure those folks are perhaps added for the next meeting, that would be a big help.
You know, this is a sidebar, and I think I mentioned it once to Christine and didn't do anything about it, but maybe going into April, whether she could distribute to us, because there's like 92 people on that list. And so maybe we want to have a short but discussion around, first of all, is that list up to date? And then who should we be, you know, like more by
Content.
Yeah, types. Like this is our housing group. This is our senior group. This is our economic development group. And because it's quite a hodgepodge, and I don't want us to not invite anybody, but you know, is it the right, and maybe an initiative would be to, through a little PR, get the word out, like, first of all, do you still want to be on the list? And then, or if you're not on the list, would you give us your name? So just a kind of a cleanup, because I feel like it's,
I update that list weekly, and if someone doesn't want to be on it, they certainly let me know.
okay, well, good.
And people who, I always get your request, Councilor Carpenter, to add people, so I always add them. So that list does get updated almost weekly. But as far as including, I think Marcella's contacts, I can reach out to her separately, and I can get those from her, and I can start including those for the next couple meetings coming up.
Well, it was more of like targeted sub lists, you know, like, okay, this month we're going to talk about housing, and I don't want to exclude anyone, but I want to make sure we haven't, you know, excluded anybody. And, you know, so it just sort of,
yeah, I mean, I would recommend keeping that like master list as it is, because the minute we start excluding people from that and picking and choosing who gets invited to what, people are going to get upset. But I think keeping that master list, but then when we are focusing on senior issues, I get a list from Marcella. Housing, I have my contact, Todd at CEDO, right, has a contact list that's separate. So I think maybe just adding additional contact lists to that master list, if that works. If that works better. Yeah.
That'd be good.
Yeah, I can certainly start collecting a different subset of lists and saving them in the city drive. So moving forward too, we'll always have them, different subsets of contacts.
It's more like I don't want to lose if we're having a particular conversation. And you know, just, you know, I look at like, I don't know, just a little different. Like I look at Maura Collins is on the list, but actually it's Leslie Black Pumo who does all the municipal stuff. So I think there's just, well, she's on there too now, actually. So maybe I'm off base. Anyway, just the sub list might be useful.
Sure.
And if you have ideas, sounds like you've already been doing that, but Christine will just keep adding people if you have names you see missing, Sarah, who you think really should be included. I'm glad that one person who we didn't reach out to was Angela Smith-Jiang, and I think Kim Fitzgerald has been on our list for these meetings, but it'd be good to have some real providers who are doing, you know, who haven't been normally included, I guess. In this
well, it's different. Like we have Cindy Reed on, not Kim, which is fine. I mean, so there's probably some sharing of.
Yeah, they forward stuff to each other. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, there's no reason for it to be a short list for any particular reason.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think we have, unless you all think we should keep going, I think we sort of, do Sarah or Zoraya, any business that you want to raise or a reason to continue discussing if we don't have, you know, the sort of feedback from the senior group?
No. I mean,
you don't mind having it. You don't mind having an hour early off for the night? No. Okay.
I have to get ready for some Montpelier stuff tomorrow, so because they're going on break, and so it's a dash to the finish line because of crossover stuff.
Well, I'm going to pretend it's totally related, but I'm going to ask you to tell us if the state of Vermont's going to pass a rental housing code bill with rental registration and all that. It affects seniors and it affects everybody, but I'd love to know, because it's Burlington set the standard, and if we had that, we'd have a very different situation.
I'll be public about this. My sense of frustration is unbelievably high this week because we have crossover. And for those of you who don't know, or I don't know if Zariah understands that, but in the state legislature, when you have the Senate and the House, they're each working on bills. You have a deadline called crossover, which means if it doesn't get from one chamber to the other chamber, it dies. Well, we've got this thing going on with the two committees and we are way behind. And I am concerned that we may not get it passed because we're so behind and they're mired in, and I'm not trying to be critical, but a little bit, it's like it's been from the last 10 years. It's just not high enough a priority to get people moved.
Huh. You would think that since renters live in places they don't control, you'd think rental safety would be like kind of a basic for people.
I know. I mean, as much as we get frustrated about things in Burlington, you ought to live in Hardwick or Marshfield or someplace like that.
Yeah.
I have this wonderful man who serves on that committee. Is a town health officer in Marshfield, and it's just so different. It's a different world.
Sure
and
is.
the thing that's hanging them up a lot is the rental registry. I don't think we should have a list of the apartments. I'm like, well, why not? Well, because
we have voter checklists, we have car registration lists, we have it all, but the apartment's very different, huh?
Yeah. So I don't know.
Okay.
I spent all day today. I have all day tomorrow. Then I got to get a little lobbying done over the break.
All right. Well, go ahead, Zariah.
I was gonna say, it's just so funny to move from Germany to America, because there you have like automatic registration everywhere.
Everything. It's not even questioned. Not even questioned.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, it's so such a falsehood. I mean, we're all on the million list, and what this particular thing is, we have the tax list, the grand list, the E911 list. We actually have a lead registry list. Now with the new rental relief program that came through with the COVID money, we've got that list. Mm-hmm. And so part of this bill is, could we just put them all into one list? And it's not, one of the senators, and I've discussed this with her, said, I don't want to be a list. So I went right in the E911 list, and I'm like, you're on that list.
You're already on it. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, is there a motion to adjourn for tonight and reconvene on the 17th, I guess would be our next meeting.
Okay. St. Patrick's Day.
Okay. St. Patty's Day. All right. Yeah. Please party after the meeting.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
All
right.
All right.
Councillor Hightower's moved. Councillor Carpenter seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it for sure. Thanks, Christine. Nice to meet you, Chanel.
Thanks for having me. I'll see you guys next time.
Take care.
Okay.
Yep, you bet. I'll wear my purple next time.
Okay.
Green.
All right.
So Chanel.
All good, or I know it was a little short, but at least I've seen some of the previous meetings from doing the minutes. So
that's true.
That's at least a little helpful.
And, obviously this wasn't a great one to train you on, but again, like they're really easygoing. Brian's going to give you direction. You saw him giving me direction even. Yeah, so the only thing that's going to change next time is that you're going to, I should maybe stop recording. Hold on. No one needs to hear us doing
Good
this
call.
training.